Welcome to, thank you. I was just going to say, we're ready to start. Welcome to the Juvenile Justice Committee meeting of the Youth Development Council. And the Youth Development Council is our state advisory group. So welcome to our meeting this afternoon, or this morning into the afternoon. Molly Rogers, and I am your chair for today. And I will ask Anya, do you want to do a quick roll call or introductions for us?
Sure. Joy, do you have the list? Should we go first by the council members and then the guests and presenters?
Yeah, I will do a quick roll call of everyone. Just a note is that Judge Sarah said she's going to be in at 12 noon today, and Kim Lee is not going to be present at today's meeting. And I think Adrian as well also declined this meeting. So just to start, the first person on my list is Zan Ojero.
Present. Good morning.
Sam Cole. Andy Leonard. Tabitha Lewis. Deborah Matten.
Good morning. I'm here.
Christina McMahon. Maricela Ortega Guzman.
Present.
Molly Rogers. Molly Rogers?
I am here. Sorry, my mouse wouldn't stay on that screen. And I believe Christina will be joining us in just a few minutes.
Okay. And last on the list is Kiwi Wilson. Okay, I'll hand it back to you, Molly.
Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that we have some community members that are here and joining us today. And while I won't have you necessarily introduce yourselves, just know that I acknowledge that you are here, and Joy will be able to keep down a record of everyone who attended. And so with that, actually, I do want staff to have the opportunity to introduce themselves. So are we able to? I saw several people here. So, Joy, are you able to invite and do a roll call of staff?
Yes, I can do that. I'll start and then I'll just pass it on. My name is Joy Snyder. I'm the Administrative Specialist for Prevention and Justice Team. And I'll pass it on to Anya.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning. Still good morning, everyone. So I'm Anya Sikin. I'm the Associate Director of YDO, and I just thrilled to have so many people join us today. And so should I pass it on to, I see Lindsay. I see the very top of Lindsay's head.
Thanks. Yep, I'm Lindsay Schoonover. I am the State Compliance Monitor with the Youth Development Division, and I'll pass it to Lawrence.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lawrence White. I am the Racial and Ethnic Disparity Coordinator with Youth Development Oregon with their Prevention and Justice team, and I will pass it to Melissa.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Melissa Gallardo. I am the Executive Support Specialist for YDO, and I'm just here in the background today helping out in case Joy or anyone needs anything. Thanks. Oh, and I will pass it to who else is here on our staff? Is that everyone of the staff? Okay, I think Brian might try to pop in a little bit later, but he is at our first convening for the year in person.
Today is such a busy day for everybody. Molly, are you sure we don't want to let our guests Neller and Carolyn introduce themselves because they have a special role and we're kind of hoping for them to continue coming to the meetings?
I do. Absolutely. Nella and Caroline, you're more than welcome to come off mute and introduce yourself. That would be wonderful. Nella first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Nella Hogberg. I am a delinquency analyst with the Oregon Judicial Department and have been a part of launching the Juvenile Delinquency Improvement Program and happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us, and I'll pass it over to Caroline.
Thank you all for allowing us to participate. This is my first meeting. I'm Caroline Meyer. I'm also an analyst, a delinquency analyst with OJD, the JDEP program. And so I work directly with Nella. And yes, we certainly are working on some initiatives that are very, very relevant to these topics. So I'm very interested in participating, and thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Anya, for reminding me. I was going to have them introduce themselves and join us in the conversation about probation reform. So there's just a little tidbit for you when we get to that conversation. I am delighted and excited for today to have the presentation for the 2021-2023 JCP Prevention Program. These are the program, these are the grants, these are the kind of direct relationship our committee has with each of the 36 counties and the 9 federally recognized tribes in the state of Oregon, and how we invest locally. And one of the beautiful parts about that is that we have a tool to do some evaluation of those services. And so I'm delighted to have NPC with us today, and I'm going to have Anya do the introductions and kickoff.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Molly. And well, I don't know, Anna, Lisa, I think I saw Leanza. Do you want to introduce yourself personally? Because I'll just open it by saying NPC Research has been a partner to, well, YDO and the predecessor of the YDO, specifically in the juvenile crime prevention evaluation work. They are the masterminds behind the JCP risk assessment tool, and I think which kind of got a lot of attention lately and is being considered for other things. So that's why I think Nella and Caroline, you might be getting a bit of a closer view of what the tool does and how it helps us shape policy later on. Anyway, so it's been a wonderful partnership for over 20 years, I might say. Because I started, believe it or not, 20 years ago in August. When I saw that day, God, this is too long. But NPC Research had been already working with us. So that's how we have this, as my colleague Lawrence would say, trending in the right direction thing. It's really important to maintain this partnership when you don't have to explain every time everything to every new set of people. So anyway, Anna, Lisa, Leanza, do you want to introduce themselves one by one? Because, you know, I'll keep on blabbing how fabulous you are, which you all are.
Thank you so much, Anya. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Tamarkin, and I am from NPC Research. And along with my very esteemed colleague, Dr. Juliet Mackin, I lead the evaluation of the JCP program. I have 2 awesome colleagues with me today. I'll let them introduce themselves. I'll pass it to Lisa.
Hello, I'm Lisa Lucas, and I am the analyst for the JCP from NPC Research, and I think I've worked on this for like 16 years of those 20 something. So, and so has Anna. So, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, and Leanza.
Hi, I'm Leanza Walker, and I'm also a researcher for NPC. I've been helping out Lisa with getting this report together, and this is my first year working on it. So it's nice to meet you all.
Great, and I think, should we just dive in, Anya?
I think so, unless somebody have any...
Yeah, Joy, I guess I'll be sharing the slides. If you want to give me permission, please.
Yeah, sure.
And before we start, would you rather ask should we ask people to hold their questions until the end of the presentation, or are you comfortable answering questions as they arise?
I think we are very comfortable answering questions as they arise. So any questions that pop up along the way, please ask them. I'm very excited to have Lisa operating the slides for me and Leanza taking notes. So I think between the three of us, we can manage this, and interruptions are just fine.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. We are really excited to be here and to share the 2021-2023 statewide evaluation findings for the JCP program. As I already mentioned, my name is Anna, and my colleague Juliet is my co-leader in the JCP evaluation. She unfortunately isn't able to be with us today, but is a central member of this team, of course. And then Lisa and Leanza are joining me, and they are the data analysts that work very intimately with the JCP evaluation data. So they are a wealth of information, have lots of answers to many, many questions, and I'm really glad they're here with me today. I'm going to be giving kind of a summary overview of the evaluation findings, but if you're wondering about anything more detailed or specific in terms of data, do please feel free to ask. Lisa has all of our data tables and data appendices at the ready, and we can either answer your questions as they come up today, or if it's something that we need to investigate further, we'll do that and loop back with you after this meeting. All right, Lisa, I think next slide. Great. So we're going to start with just a little background about the JCP program and the evaluation. Next slide, Lisa. So the Juvenile Crime Prevention Program supports all 36 counties and all 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon. The goal of the JCP program is to serve young people who are at risk of engaging in criminal behavior and to prevent that criminal behavior. So when youth begin receiving JCP services, they are administered the JCP assessment tool. And this is a tool that measures a variety of risk and protective factors in 6 different domains. So you can see here on the right side of the slide, those are the 6 domains. Youth are assessed for risk related to school and academics, related to behavior, to family functioning and communication, substance use, peers and friendships, and thoughts and attitudes. And the tool also includes a collection of mental health indicators. The assessment is initially administered at intake, so when a youth begins services, and then again every 6 months, and those are what we call reassessments. The evaluation is conducted every 2 years and examines the change in risk levels among youth who are receiving JCP services and the impact on juvenile crime for those youth who are receiving services. And next. So just a quick description of the youth who are included in this evaluation sample. Just to note, we had 1,621 JCP youth with initial assessments on that tool. So the following slides describing the youth are for these youth. And then we had 927 youth who had both an initial and a reassessment. So those are the youth who are included in the analysis where we look at change in risk levels. And next. So about 60% of the youth were white, followed by 20% Latinx, 8% Native American, 6% multiracial, 3% Black, and 1% each for Asian and Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. So about 40% of youth served by JCP are from historically marginalized groups. And I do want to mention that when we comb through all of the risk assessment data, we look closely to see if there are any patterns that emerge that suggest any differences between youth based on demographic characteristics. And this time around, we didn't see any particularly strong or consistent patterns in any of the outcomes based on youth characteristics. But we do, a little bit later in the presentation, we'll share a few of the statistically significant findings that we did see. But just a reminder that we do have all of these findings broken down by subgroups and demographics. So if there's anything you're interested in knowing more about, definitely ask us. All right. On average, JCP youth were 14 years old. They ranged from 7 years old to 19 years old. About 2/3 were 13 and younger, and 1/3 was 14 and older. 59% were male and 39% female. We also have kind of a recently added gender category, and 2% of youth identified as another gender. 3/4 of JCP youth were from less populated counties. So these are counties, we're defining them as having a population of less than 300,000. And then 1/4 were from counties with populations greater than 300,000. Next. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, when youth enter JCP services, they complete an initial risk assessment. And there are 30 different scored risk and protective factors on the assessment. So an overall risk score can range from 0 to 30. Depending on that overall score, youth fall in one of 3 categories. 0 to 4 risk factors is considered to be low risk. 5 to 13 is considered to be medium risk, and then 14 or more risk factors is high risk. And I just want to make a note about how the scoring works and how protective factors are accounted for in the overall score. So for each risk factor that a youth has, they get a 1. And if a youth is missing a protective factor, that is, they don't have that protective factor, that counts as a 1 as well. So lacking a protective factor equates a risk. At initial assessment, most JCP youth were considered to be medium risk, and the average risk score was 8, which falls in that medium category. 40% were low risk and 17% were high risk. On average, JCP youth had 6 risk factors and were missing 2 protective factors, and that's where we get the overall average risk score of 8. And on average, they had risk factors in 4 different domains. And this is worth noting because to be eligible for JCP services, youth have to have risks in at least 2 domains. And so we see here that JCP youth have risk across 4, so considerably more than the eligibility requirement. Next. In addition to those 6 domains, the JCP assessment tool also includes indicators of mental health needs, and these are listed on the left side of the slide here. So the mental health indicators are if youth are actively suicidal or have made prior attempts, if they are depressed or withdrawn, if they're having difficulty sleeping or eating, experiencing hallucinations or delusions that are not related to drug or alcohol use, and if they are socially isolated. And this chart here shows that 46% out of all JCP youth, 46% did not have any mental health indicators, but over half have either 1 or more than 1. And you can see in this chart that the percentage of youth with more than one mental health indicator increases as risk level increases. And that over half of the youth who are considered to be high risk have more than one mental health indicator. We looked back at the last several years of evaluation and noted that this is kind of the pattern we've seen over the last several biennia since 2015. So this is a consistent finding. Okay, next. So now we're going to share some of the findings related to risk and protection outcomes. So really what we're seeing in terms of change in risk level among youth. Next. We found that 4 in 10 JCP youth had a reduction in their risk level between initial and reassessment, so after receiving JCP services. 28% stay kind of the same risk level, and 31% have an increase in risk. Next. One of our kind of key takeaway findings here related to risk and change in risk is that we see the greatest amount of risk reduction among the highest risk youth. So you can see here that on the right-hand bar, 68% of high-risk youth have a reduction in their risk level. And that's compared to 48% of medium-risk youth and 21% of low-risk youth. Next. We see that JCP youth have significant increases in their protective factors. So these are essentially those factors that can buffer against risk factors. These here on this slide are the top 5 increases in protective factors. So the ones we see the most increase in. 30% of youth have friends who disapprove of unlawful behavior, and youth who have friends who are academic achievers. So we see a 30% increase in those 2 protective factors. We see increases in youth who communicate effectively with their family members and who have significant school attachment or commitment. So 38 and 39% respectively there. And finally, over half of the youth gained the protective factor of having an adult in their lives that they can talk to. Next. We also see very significant reductions in risk among JCP youth. So at reassessments, starting over here on the left-hand side, 70% of youth who at their initial assessment had engaged in some sort of behavior that hurt others or put others in danger during the past month no longer had this risk factor at reassessment. We see similarly impressive reductions in risk for running away, school dropout, aggressive or disruptive behavior at school, and problematic substance use. Next. Just a quick spotlight here on the kinds of improvements we see in the school domain specifically. 39% of JCP youth gained the protective factor of being attached or committed to school. And we see a 62% reduction in school dropout, 48% reduction in chronic truancy, and a 44% reduction in academic failure. Okay, next. All right, switching now to outcomes related to juvenile crime prevention. Next. So we found that most JCP youth had no criminal involvement or detention in the 12 months after starting JCP services. So you can see here that 78% of youth had no criminal referrals after JCP, and 85% did not have detention. Next. We look at both youth who had criminal involvement before they started JCP and youth who did not have any criminal involvement before starting JCP. And we find that both groups continue to avoid criminal involvement after JCP for up to 36 months or 3 years. So just to highlight a couple of things here, 2/3 or 67% of youth who did not have criminal involvement before they started JCP continued to not have any criminal involvement for up to 3 years. And 39% of youth who did have criminal involvement before JCP did not have any further criminal involvement, so no recidivism, after 3 years. Next. Similarly, both youth who had criminal involvement before JCP and those who did not avoided detention up to 3 years after starting JCP. So 86% of youth with no criminal behavior before JCP avoided detention for up to 36 months, and 45% of youth with criminal behavior before JCP avoided detention after 36 months. Okay. This slide shows the criminal involvement of JCP youth in the 12 months after starting JCP services and breaks it down by risk level, which is measured at the initial assessment. So looking over here on the left, that collection of bars, you can see that this is all JCP youth, regardless of their risk level. 78% have no criminal involvement in the 12 months after JCP. And then you can see that the proportion who doesn't have criminal involvement goes down as risk level goes up. And then moving over to the right, we see that high-risk youth represent the greatest proportion of youth who have 1 or more criminal referrals. So 1 or 2 or 3 or more. We see the most high-risk youth in those categories. And then finally, the set of bars on the far right of the slide show, again, that high-risk youth represent the greatest proportion of youth who have detention in the 12 months after starting JCP. Next. Okay, and this slide shows a really interesting and important outcome. Most JCP youth avoid criminal involvement after JCP, which we've seen over the last several slides. And the rates of criminal involvement are much less than we would expect based on their risk levels. So the purple bars here represent the percentage of low, medium, and high risk youth who do have criminal involvement in the first 12 months after JCP. And that blue line represents the percentage we would expect based on risk level to have criminal involvement. And this is based on what we found when we conducted a validation study of the JCP assessment tool, and we looked at the probability of offending based on risk level. So you can see here that for low risk youth, for example, we would expect that 25% of them would reoffend. But in this group of JCP youth, only 10% of them do. And for medium risk youth, we see that only 25% compared to the 50% we would expect do. And for high risk youth, we see only 39% compared to 75%. And next. So as I mentioned earlier, we do examine all outcomes by youth characteristics, and we thought we'd share just a few of the differences that did emerge. But again, if you're interested in more detail here or the comprehensive set of analyses, please let us know and we're happy to share those. We do see a few differences in outcomes by race. So Native, Latinx, and Asian youth had significantly less criminal involvement both before and after JCP than all other racial groups. White youth had significantly less criminal involvement than Black and multiracial youth. And again, that's both before and after JCP. Females had less criminal involvement than males, and younger youth had less detention than older youth. And then we see that youth from less populated counties and youth from tribes had less criminal involvement than youth from the more populated counties. Okay, next. Just to wrap up here, we wanted to share a few kind of key highlights from these findings and also a few recommendations. So 3 major takeaways that we see emerging from these evaluation data. First, youth who participate in the JCP program do avoid criminal recidivism, especially youth who are considered to be high risk at their initial assessment. Further, we see the greatest risk reduction among high-risk youth. And finally, we do see considerable impact in the school domain. So youth who participated in JCP tended to re-engage in education programs. So we saw reductions in things like dropout and truancy and an increase in school attachment. Next. So in terms of recommendations or things to think about as we move forward with the evaluation and the program, based on those key takeaways I just shared, first, focusing on services for high-risk youth is important as we see quite a bit of impact for those youth. Second, it would be worthwhile to expand the scope of the evaluation to really look more closely at the differences in individual risk and protective factors. So looking at whether certain risk or protective factors are more or less likely to change. And kind of along with this, really learning from JCP providers and gathering their insights on this from their experiences. Along those same lines, gathering more information from service providers about the services that JCP youth are receiving. We see these positive outcomes for risk reduction and juvenile crime prevention, but we know less about what the services actually look like for youth. So collecting data about eligibility, dosage, types of services and programs would really add some context and richness to these evaluation findings. And then finally, since we do see some differences among different groups of youth, it's important to explore the impact of culturally specific and culturally responsive services. Okay, that is it. I just want to thank everyone for being here and listening. And if anyone has any questions or feedback, we're more than happy to continue to hang out and discuss. Or you are always welcome to get in touch with us at your convenience, and we'd be happy to chat more. So we'll open it up if there are any questions or comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna and Lisa, and for all of the information. It's exciting to see it and to know that as we read the plans, that they implemented, that the counties implemented, the service providers implemented, made a difference. Are there any questions or any aha moments from, and maybe we can stop sharing.
Okay. Yep.
Any aha moments from any of the members? Oh, thank you, because now I can see, hi, Christina, and her hand is up.
Okay. Well, first of all, so nice to see you, Anna, and meet the other folks on your team. We go way back, and you've done great work in our county, so good to see you again. The question that I had is the decision, not a criticism, just curiosity, the decision to sort of break this out by population, counties with populations of less than 300 versus 300,000. That was interesting to me because I know, for example, in the OJDDA, in our statewide Juvenile Directors Association, we always kind of have this, I mean, this isn't written in stone, but it's sort of any county that is over 100,000 is considered a large county. So when I think of those counties, those tend to be counties, obviously in the metro region, not always, but that are along the I-5 corridor. We have Deschutes County and Jackson County that would fall into that realm, and also Douglas County. When I was there, we just barely made it over that 100,000 mark. So the way we kind of view that is counties that they might have a mix of rural and urban, but they have access to more services, right? So I don't know. So when I heard 300,000, I thought, whoa, I'm trying to do the math on who that is. And what was that, like six counties? I'm not up on my population stats from PSU, but it's a very small group.
Yes, and I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is, I think, Lisa, the first time we've actually done that breakdown. And Lisa, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but were there 5 counties in that over 300,000 population?
I think so. Yeah, Lane, Marion, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington. Yeah, so just the 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we based that on some sort of definition of urban versus, well, was it urban versus rural, Lisa, or?
Right, that's where we were starting, and I think it was a more it wasn't Oregon specific, so.
Oh.
Right. And I think your comment, Christina, about the 100,000 is really worth us thinking about, and maybe exploring this a little bit more in terms of, being a little bit more Oregon specific and our understanding of those counties. So it's a great point.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating, Anna, that it's got to be 100,000. When I think about the counties in our, the 36 of us, there are the large counties that are in sort of, it's very different between the large counties, what I would call the rural counties, and then those frontier, very small counties where you literally sometimes have departments where it's 1 or 2 people in the juvenile department doing the work, and sometimes covering a really big geographical area. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I think it would be interesting to look at the different results by those groupings, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I know from being involved with the Juvenile Directors Association for the last 19 years, that there's a lot of disparity in the access to programming and services. And so when I think about, we use our JCP prevention dollars to fund our diversion program that's located in all 11 cities and towns. And we contract with an outside community-based provider to do that. But that community-based provider is able to leverage a whole bunch of other services that exist in Clackamas County that help promote the success of the young people and the families who are going through that program. And that isn't always the case in some of those really rural, smaller counties. So I think that would be an interesting, I'd be curious about that. And, I'm always advocating that opportunity and justice shouldn't be based on geography, even though that's our reality. So that might help in some of the advocacy that we try to do to get more resources throughout the state.
Yes. Sorry, my dog's barking. I love that suggestion, and I think we're all feeling kind of excited about exploring that more. So we'll definitely take those thoughts and suggestions back and play around with the data a little bit more and see what we can find out and what emerges.
Thanks.
Thank you, Christina.
Caroline. Oh, Caroline, I need to make sure if there's any other members with their hand raised. Nope, Caroline, please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Christina, for asking the exact same question that I had. And you did a much better job. I literally had written out, how does the availability or lack thereof of services impact these outcomes? Because I had that same thought, you know, when you're seeing it as an overall, how much improvement, and these are impressive. I really impressed with the presentation. It's very clear to follow, and really great information. But that was my only thought too, was it's great to see the impact of the services, the positive impact. Seems to be very, you know, it's working very well, but I would just wonder how that varies in counties where the same level of service is not available. So yeah, I think that would be really helpful to see.
Yeah, thanks for that. And, you know, I think one of the things we always kind of come out of this process craving is understanding the context more. So this is a great topic for us to investigate further. And, you know, goes along with our kind of desire and suggestion to learn more about the services in general and what they look like for youth. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at the creativity of us small counties and how we turn $1 into $5 relatively quick. And so I think that would be really interesting to see across the state, the creativity and how those things work out. And again, I think the impressive part for me has always been around impact, and that the real impact is at the high risk level and reducing those, because it's called the Local High Risk Juvenile Crime Prevention Plan. And the impressive work that's done with those really high risk youth across the state is amazing.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I cannot wait to see my local one, I have to admit.
Yes.
We are working on those as we speak.
I'm just like, oh, this is good information. So back in 1999, when I was actually around when we created the JCP with Barbara Selgin and Juliet and all of that, it really has been an amazing tool and that stood the time and that we've really invested in. And so that has been, because what we have is longevity of data.
Yes.
Which is super amazing that we have that longevity of data to see how we've done over the years. And I mean, let's just pat ourselves on the back a little bit on how counties and partnerships within the communities have reduced the overall number of youth entering the juvenile justice system overall in the past 25 years, and how we've been able to reduce our reliance on close custody and higher level of care over those same 25 years, and own that we get a part in that story. And so thank you so much, NPC Research, for doing that for us.
Well, it is our honor, and thank you for inviting us to do so.
Anya, am I missing anything?
No, I think you summarized it really well. Just to let you know, Joy had Joy has applause. I thought it was a hand. I thought she had a question. So you are the first people to see this PowerPoint and the results of the evaluation. So this is your opportunity for feedback. After NPC Research incorporates your feedback, the next presentation will be at the Youth Development Council meeting. What is it, 2 weeks from now? On June 13th. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So that will be for the full council, and there will be another opportunity for questions and feedback and things. Now, Zen, I see you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Anya. Well, one of the questions that comes up, especially for those of you who have been around for a long time, is how have some of these numbers changed over time? So what is the trend data? And when you present to the YDC, can you provide just a little bit of context on trend so that we can see, have risk factors overall gone up, gone down? The racial and economic disparity, has that changed much? Recidivism rates, have they gotten better? Those are questions that come up for me when I see this 2-year static report.
Sure. Yeah, great point. And I will say that we do typically see pretty consistent numbers, but I agree that it would be helpful to share more about that. And so we can absolutely plan on doing that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So Anna, do you think you have enough time before June 13th to pull out just the key findings, the key trends, the numbers,
Yes.
and changes in risk factors, as well as recidivism first crime?
Yes, I think we can do that. No problem.
That will be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christina, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just had a comment, and I don't want to rain on the parade, because it is great that we're seeing the reduction with the high-risk kids, and I'm not advocating that we shouldn't focus on high-risk kids, but the practical reality of that is when kids start out being high risk, there is room for their risk to be lowered. If you start out being low risk, it's like limbo, right? The game of limbo. How low can you go? If you're starting out low to begin with, less opportunity. The idea with the low, in my mind, with low risk, is we're trying to make sure that they don't end up escalating because we're ignoring whatever happened that brought them to our attention to begin with. So, and I didn't hear you saying this, so but I have to say, when I saw that, in my mind, I thought, oh no. Funding wise, I'm one of the people that's advocating we need to have more funding on way more upstream on the end of the spectrum before kids even hit us. And we've really seen throughout the pandemic and the impacts of Measure 110 with the decriminalization of drugs and the impact that had on young people. Wow, what could we do if we could really get upstream? So, I know Molly's been talking a lot about assessment centers in the state to try to figure out what's going on with kids before they end up landing in the deeper end of the juvenile department, right? So I didn't hear you. I know I would never hear you folks saying don't fund prevention programming, but we really do need. It's not an or, it's an and, right? I just worry about how, when those sound bites go out, how people that make decisions on money interpret that, but anyway, just thinking out loud, not criticizing, because it feels like we've really lost over the years, really lost our ability to fund prevention programming. And I know the 2025 legislative session is going to be all about kids and taking care of the things that didn't happen with the Measure 110 reform this session. So I'm waiting with bated breath for that to happen, but I've heard it before. So I'm just concerned about, I think there are things about your data that could inform why we need prevention. And you said you had that point about if you could get richer information about dosage and actual services, that would help. And I think there's a treasure trove there. We just need to figure out how to mine it. And maybe there needs to be a requirement on the counties to give you a little more stuff besides just the numbers. I don't know. I'm just once again thinking out loud. And I'm from a county and I'm volunteering that. So what does that say?
Yeah, great. No, those are all good points. And absolutely, it's important to keep in mind that the high risk youth there's more room to decrease. And I think another, kind of related to another one of our recommendations is looking at individual risk and protective factors. Some are more dynamic than others. Some are more static. I think looking at which ones do we see the most reduction in, or the most, what for low risk kids, which ones are creeping up at reassessment. I think those are all really, really valuable directions to go in and get a little bit more rich information.
Right. Like, well, Anna, sorry. you know that and I knew it was for Clackamas when you did the work for us a few years ago, but I think it applies across the state in most counties. One of the risk factors that had the most weight was chronic runaway.
Yes.
Being a chronic runaway.
Yes.
And there's no funding for that, even though all of us know that if you pull up today's high-risk kid and you look back on their record, how many runaways did they have? It's not surprising when it's multiple. So,
yeah,
anyway.
That is one of our strongest and most consistent findings, is that particular risk indicator, the chronic runaway. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'll stop being an airtime hog. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. So I'm going to answer the question of Brian in the chat after Debbie has her opportunity. So Debbie?
Oh, thanks, Molly. I was just going to add a little bit to what Christina said in terms of, I was having the same thoughts of like, well, of course we see the biggest reduction in high-risk youth. They have the most to fall. I mean, they have the most room to drop. And also there could be, and not necessarily for this presentation, but just some additional information for counties to consider in terms of the type of impact that the programs are having, is what would we expect to see in terms of a drop? And then what was the actual drop? And so if there's some like national level data on like, hey, when they get involved in programming, we see typically across all these studies, 15% drop in risk. And in Oregon, it's a 20 or 25 or a 10 or, whatever the numbers are. So then you're trying to kind of level out that like, yes, we expected to see a big drop and we're seeing a bigger drop, or maybe not as big of a drop as what we would have expected to see, or what other jurisdictions see with similar type approaches. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and it's there's some national data on sometimes programs increase risk factors, right? And that's where the evidence-based work comes into play, is articulating if programs reduce or increase risk factors. So that's a good point. Some of the national data that's out there on, do no harm kind of pieces. So are all counties and tribes totally and intentionally focusing on youth with high risk factors and preventing penetration deeper into the JJ system and OYA? Brian, there's actually a statute that identifies who we have to intentionally and totally focus on. And so it's youth with two or more two risk factor in two or more domains. I have to make sure I get the language right. And so in the planning process, different counties are able to articulate different programs. And so some counties are able to work on a little bit lower risk and a little bit younger kids. And then some counties have a little bit higher risk and a little bit deeper in the system. It really is based on their needs and gaps within their counties. This is where there is a difference sometimes between the rural and the urban populations when we read the JCP plans, when we all read those before. Some counties, the access is at the first referral to the juvenile department, typically for like the runaway or a status offense, and some of them are completely school-based. Did I answer that correctly, Anya?
I think so.
Okay. Christina, do you feel like I answered that correctly? Okay. Debbie, your hand is still up. Did you have something? Okay. Okay. But that's a great question, Brian, because that really, I want to say about 15 years ago, maybe less, there was a push to eliminate the requirement for the risk factors. And a lot of the data from the NPC articulated that while you can make an impact along the way, it was important to have some sort of kind of measurement tool for youth to come into to be able to access the services. So it's a great question. Anybody else? Any last comments from NPC?
I don't think so. Just a lot of gratitude for this great discussion, the great suggestions. We'll take them back to our team, and we'll look forward to sharing a bit more information at the next one in June. So thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
That'll be awesome. And thank you. And thank you, NPC team. I just want to follow up a little bit on the conversation we just had. So would it be possible in your PowerPoint to include runaway?
Sure.
Factors in, because I know we always emphasize the likelihood of involvement in juvenile justice system with history of running away. And also just for everybody in the, I wanted to say in the room, on the screen, in your rooms. So individual county data will be shared with each county. So the room for improvement is always there. So once each county receives their own set of information, it's up to them really to make improvements in the process if needed, and kind of reevaluate what type of program is being funded and whether it's still getting the results that they expected, and then moving on to the next funding cycle for the next biennium, make some changes. And they can also make changes right now. If the program that is being funded is the same one as was funded during the previous biennium, and they are not satisfied with the results it's producing, all they need to do is submit a request to change the plan. So there is a way to do process improvement literally every day. And when we have a statewide data set, it's really hard to see what is really happening in the communities because it's just aggregated everything all together. All kids are piled up in one. But we will have access to individual data sets. And I know Anna and the team always make like very pretty reports for each community, as well as tribal reports as well. So this was just the first presentation. Thank you for presenting. Thank you, the audience, for your productive feedback, and we will see you again in June.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Okay, you are more than welcome to hang out with us, but I know that you guys probably have a busy day. So thank you for giving us your time, and we're gonna move on to the Juvenile Detention Guidelines Work Group assignment. Correct, Anya?
I don't see the agenda. But if you say so, yes, then go there.
I printed the agenda out so that I wouldn't have to rely on it.
For whatever reason, and I'm not gonna, continue. We cannot print at home. We work at home, but we cannot print at home.
And I don't typically print it out. Today I had to. So, I'm just going to do a quick update on the detention guidelines. I've received information back from Tabiti, and Sam Coe on what assignments they would like to participate with. And I believe that there might have been some outreach at our last meeting from one of our community partners that listens into our meetings that they would like to at least be a partner on one of the work groups. And so my request is please take the opportunity to look at it once again and see if there's areas of interest. And after June 7th, that's a very important date. After that week in June, Anya and I will be helping to set up some subcommittee groups to start taking a look at the detention guidelines. So again, they were in our email this time. And if you're ready to tell me or to tell Anya what kind of sections you want to take a look at or you would be interested in, by all means, I'm going to give some space for that. Christina.
Well, I would like to volunteer for section 1 and section 2 because there's a lot of legal stuff in there, so I like that. But I also wanted to inquire, I have people on my team that I think would be really well suited for some of these sections. So do you want me to give you their names at a later date? Maybe I should check in with them before I fall and told them.
Yeah, that would be awesome if you could check with them and then send us an email saying that this is who will be looking at section number.
Yeah, that would be amazing, but make sure you check in with them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to say yes.
I do too, knowing them, but yes. Thank you. And that truly 1 and 2 really are needing to have kind of a heavy juvenile department, juvenile justice look, because those are kind of our guiding ORSs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zan, I will assign you a couple sections if you're okay with me just being free to do that. And I'll kind of try to take a look at ones that seem to make appropriate from a policy level at the county.
Awesome. Also, Nella, you came off mute. Are you going to say what I think you're going to say?
What do you think I'm going to say?
Well, I'm going to say that I think what you're going to say that you're volunteering.
Yes.
Your expertise. Yes, I could read your mind.
I'm happy to volunteer, yeah, for whichever. I'm interested in the section 2. And yeah, or whichever sections you'd like to tell me.
Sure. And to make sure everyone realizes this is not a heavy lift, it's really to just look through and see if there are any new information or new practices or new ORSs to make sure that we have just incorporated 2021 and 2023 long sessions into it. So we're not asking by any means to do the heavy lift. It's really just the let's make sure this is still completely relevant.
Molly, this is Maricela. At first, feel free to assign me wherever you need me. Happy to do whatever, but at first glance, Section 4, Program Services, and then Section 5, Youth Rights, and potentially Behavior Management System, Section 6.
Great. You just volunteered for 3 that you can add. That will be amazing. Okay.
It's awesome. Thank you so much.
So I think with that, and Zan, I will probably place you towards section 7 and 8. Because those are truly kind of some very high level policy work from a county perspective. I think we have people on each section now. Amazing.
I haven't heard Debbie volunteering for anything.
I was just gonna say wherever, but I was looking at 8, but it doesn't really matter. I can do whichever.
No, that would be awesome if you would do 8.
Sure.
Thank you.
I have my little book here. I'm putting everybody's name in.
So after the meeting, we'll put together a little spreadsheet of who volunteered for what, and after June 7th, we will send communication and probably set a first meeting or something like that. And June 7th has an important meeting, and I will explain why in just a minute.
Perfect. Okay. That's what we needed for the detention guidelines. That's perfect. We can now then get to the 30-day program, specifically the application from Deschutes County. And so today kind of starts 120 days. Is that correct, Anya?
Correct. So the application was submitted on May 15th or 13th. But it's close enough. So we can start the 120 days from that day or from today. But the point is that it has to be approved by Youth Development Council at September meeting. So we do have the summer to work on it.
The challenge and the important part of that is that we need to get scheduling done.
Exactly.
Again, we're not going to be asking Anya to schedule us till after June 7th. But just an email to Anya if you're interested in help participating in either the paper review or the site visit.
Or both.
Or both. Yes. We'll be able to, I think, probably take a team of at least probably 4 max, kind of covered by the YDC and the Juvenile Justice Subcommittee to the facility. And that's just to honor the facilities. I mean, coming into a facility is a bit of a challenge, and it takes about 4 hours for us to do the site visit. And so I'm planning on about 4 people to go down, and Sam Coe will be one of those people. And then if there's anybody else interested, by no means do I have to participate in it. If there if there's a spot that needs to be filled, I'd be glad to do it, but I really encourage us to expand the knowledge and the experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. So once we know who has volunteered their services to participate in this work, I will share the information that was submitted by the Deschutes County. It's really a lot, so it's probably not such a great idea to send it.
So that's a good catch, Anya. The paper review takes some time.
Yes, because it's a folder.
It's a folder because we expanded and asked the application to expand. And so we approved the new application process. And so if we could get 4 or 5 people to even do the paper review our committee would be amazing.
Awesome. And of course, on our part,
participate, yeah.
The YDD staff like Lawrence and Lindsay and I will be part of that review. So 4 people on top of us.
Yes.
Up to 4 people.
4 committee members. Let me rephrase that.
Committee members.
Yes.
Yeah. Including community members.
So, yes. All righty.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we will be expecting one more within probably the next couple of months. And so if you don't get the opportunity to do Deschutes County, there'll be the opportunity probably to work with either Josephine County and potentially a new one coming on, which is Lane County.
Zen, you have a question?
Yeah, in terms of the review of the paper document, what is the timeline for that?
Oh, good question. So and I'm sorry if I always start backwards. So if we are planning to get it fully approved by the council at September meeting, which I believe was September 14th, or somewhere there, then the Juvenile Justice Committee has to come up with a recommendation for approval in August. So for us to come up with the recommendation to approve in August, the site visit should happen no later than late June, early August.
Late July.
Oh, late July, sorry. Late July, August. So somewhere in that area. And then the paper review, it will depends on how dedicated you are to paper reviews. If you spend 30 minutes a day, it will probably take you 3 days. If you want to just do everything at the same time, it's really, it's not a volume of things, but it is a application that describes what it is that they're planning to do, why they're planning to do, what kids they will be serving, what is the judicial thinking about it. So it's not about really the volume, but the intensity of the text, if it makes any sense. So when you read it, you're not checking grammar, you're just really trying to understand what it will look like. And why they're doing it. And then that's the opportunity to go visit the program, or at least probably won't be, well, if it's a renewal, there will be a program. So you'll have an opportunity to check with staff, check with kids, all these things. So that's why it's taking longer. With new one, because they haven't started yet, this probably will be less of things to see.
And I'm assuming it's useful to have the paper review done before the site visit so that you have notes from all the
papers. Yes, of course. So you can. So if there are some areas in the application that are not clear to you, there's the opportunity to ask that question and actually see the answer, not just hear it or read it.
Okay. So I think probably, Zan, as you approach that, I think and we'll have this by the next meeting for sure, but I'm thinking probably by July 19th, it would be great to have the paper reviews done. And then that gives us a bit of a timeline and gives some ability to do the site reviews. So if I'm just thinking in my own head, July 19th seems like a reasonable date. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. This is amazing. I knew that today's meeting was potentially going to be a little bit shorter, which is awesome. And now I'm going to really turn to the probation reform update. And Anya, do you want to take it away?
I was hoping not you might be, because my frequent recent travel, I think you were the face of probation reform.
I'd be glad to do an update, but I wanted to make sure I give you the opportunity first. Because you might have more information than I have. First and foremost, we had the opportunity, Christina and I had the opportunity to share about probation reform through the state advisory group lens. So really through the SAG lens, with the Juvenile Delinquency Improvement Project. So some judges participated in a conversation, and we were able to just share kind of the high probation reform toolkit that we received when we went back to Baltimore. And in that conversation, just kind of highlight and even talk about the SAG a little bit. So that was kind of a fun piece to just do with the judges. And so I don't know, Nella, did we hit your marks when we did our presentation?
Definitely, yeah. I know the judges really enjoyed hearing from you all, and several judges who weren't able to attend sort of live have been able to watch the recording. So that's been just great to get that information to them all. So thank you to Christina and Molly for putting on that presentation to the judges.
I had the opportunity last week to be back in Baltimore again. I'm a member of the Applied Leadership Network, which is also part of the Annie Casey Foundation, which is in partnership with a whole bunch of other acronyms and foundations on probation reform. And definitely there's lots of energy around diversion and being able to look at systems and off-ramps, which is, Oregon's been talking about that as well. And so it's still definitely a conversation on the national level. And then it folds into our work on the Juvenile Justice Subcommittee through the RFAs and the 3-year plan. And so I don't want to hop to that because that's not next on the agenda, but that's where I think we are at with probation reform.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. And Molly, Christina, thank you for making that presentation. And Nella, thank you for inviting us to present. We will talk about probation reform as far as the funding for it, maybe later, because we still don't have solicitation for the next 3-year funding cycle, but that will be at least a significant part of our 3-year plan for future funding. But we do have some updates for our current situation. So unless there are any, and so once we get the solicitation, we'll start working on the plan, and that's when we will have a little more organized vision of what it is that we intend to do in the state of Oregon and how we will utilize federal funds for that.
So let's talk about the audit first.
Oh God, yeah, let's talk about the audit. So we received the letter that will be, Lindsay, don't worry, it's not your audit. It's not a compliance monitoring audit. It's I think they call it now intense desk review. So it's basically they're looking at every single grant for the last few years. So they're looking at fiscal year 19, 20, 21, 22, and pre-grant. So there are 5 federal grants that we've received that they need information for. It's massive. So Melissa and Brian know that every day we compile more and more stuff that they need, and we send it to them and they need more. So after this meeting, we will be working to providing more information to them. I don't know if it's a challenge, but it's just the way we're structured here with the Department of Education. So if you ever see a Department of Education org chart, so there's Department of Education, and we're just like a little tiny gray box on the right-hand side. And then there's a YDD org chart that's kind of part of that. But the majority of the work, as far as grant administration goes, is not done by us because we have to rely on OD procurement system. So they have rules and policies and processes, how they go through that stage. Pre-grant, pre-RFA, post-RFA, grant awards, and so forth, right? Then we have an accounting system, which is also not ours, but it's the accounting system operated by ODE that can generate the reports that the Fed's asking for, and so forth. So there are multiple partners, multiple moving parts in this work that we need to get information from and rely on what they provide to us. So it's just been a little bit of a, it's honestly a little stressful, but it is something I suppose we need to do. Those program visits used to be in person, and they were a lot more personable, and we got to show local programs, and we got to visit. And I was sharing with some folks, like our previous agendas, every day had a lunch. There's no lunch now. They just have, it's a Zoom meeting from morning until everybody collapses. Anyway, joking aside, right now we've sent a set of information that they requested pre-audit, and apparently that was not enough. So we're working on getting additional information in today. But the audit itself will be here, well, here online for 3 days, June 5, 6, and 7. So June 7 is a magic date. It's a magic number. That's why I don't think my brain capacity can extend to anything else besides the audit. And we have a trip to DC next week. So that's why all of our like subgroup work will have to wait a little bit. Sorry about that. But anyway, so that's where we are. I mean, we have information for 19 and 20 because those grants have closed a long time ago. So all of it exists. Lawrence has exciting news for you. He will share in a moment. And Priya, Debbie, so we finally got the intergovernmental agreement with OYA in process, so we can pass the allocation that we received for pre-compliance to OYA to purchase some equipment. We haven't gotten a signature from OYA yet, so if you could just, like, if you see somebody who is in charge of signature authority for your agency, could you remind them?
Yeah, I think our CFO is here. I think she signs a lot of stuff. I'll check with her.
Yeah, we'll do, because yeah, I know that OD procurement sent it out to, and Aisha is sort of the Alicia is the key point for that person. Anyway, so we're in good shape. It's just the amount of paperwork and the number of people who are involved are not small.
And it's challenging doing it over Zoom versus coming out and having...
absolutely, because you cannot, because and part of it during the audit, we have to show, you know, so it has to be a show and tell, because so say we have a grant management system, right? I have to show to them how it works, you know, so we can have to demonstrate. So whole technology will work, and Joy, Lindsay, Lawrence, and I will be meeting on Friday to kind of go through our parts and roles in that. So anyway, we'll survive, I'm sure, but it's
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yeah.
I want to go back to NPC, but you mentioned something, is for a few years, we had a challenge with our data collection. And we resolved that 3 years ago. And now we really do have good statewide data. And that was as things transitioned over to the Youth Development Council from the previous organization, there was a challenge with what was called data manager. And it was really the bane of Anya's existence. And I know several of my colleagues have boxes, literally boxes of JCPs in their offices. And so that is also something that we have finally succeeded at getting up and going and having great data for.
Right. Thanks, Molly. Well, it's still called Data Manager, but it's operated by Oregon Department of Education.
And it works.
And it works, fingers crossed. And it literally belongs to us because to the state of Oregon. Because was the previous data system. I don't know how it came about, but it didn't even belong to the agency. So we had to buy the data out from the previous contract after the contract was terminated. I know, Nell, it was some weird legal situation. Anyway, it belongs to us.
All right. So the last thing is the 21 and 20 and 21 RFA. So Lawrence, you have an update for us.
Yes, the fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022 RFA has been posted. It is on our website. The application is live. You can get the information that you need from the RFA on our website to set up an account and SM apply and apply for the 3 program areas, which each holds 2 grants each. So there's 6 grants total to apply for those grants. Really excited to have gotten this out. I wouldn't say it was a challenge, but we were really trying hard to get it out so we could utilize these funds and help the youth that need to be served. Plus we have the audit and everything else going on. So this is just one less thing that as a committee, as a team, a prevention, a justice team, we have to kind of scramble with, so we can focus on other things as well. So again, really excited, fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 2022, 6 grants out live to your networks, to look at our website. All the information is there for you to set up an account and apply for these grants. One caveat, we will have a pre-conference, a pre-application conference on June 10th. That link has not been posted yet. Ran into some issues with Zoom, working through that as well. But that will be posted as an addendum to what has been posted on our website as of today. Does anyone have any questions?
Really good work. Thank you. We wrote those plans. It seems like such a long time ago. And so our 3-year plans from 20 and 21, so great work for getting those out. Really appreciate that.
You are so welcome.
We are headed to CJJ next week in Washington, DC. And so we'll have some information that we'll be able to bring back to our meeting in June on what we learned. It's typically a really robust conference, and there's other people from Oregon who are generally there and participate. And so looking forward to just hearing what the new ideas and hearing what the new kind of trends are in juvenile justice. So, and I will represent you all, except that Maricela is going to be able to sit with me, and hopefully I'll transition next year. I won't sit at the table. I'll sit behind her at the table of states on the policies put forward by CJJ. I have not seen the book of them yet, and so I don't know that there are any significant policy perspectives that are being put forward like there were 3 or 4 years ago.
I don't think so. The only big thing this year is just to get the act reauthorized, because it was supposed to go through reauthorization process a year ago, but it did not.
Right. So we'll be advocating for that on Hill Day.
Right. And so Hill Day will be Maricela, Molly, Brian, and I, and then there will be other people joining us during the conference. I just want to say, if I may go back to the RFA, because I'm so proud of the work that Lawrence put together. But Joy, that link does not open. I mean, it opens, but it requires a special permission, which I don't have. So is there like a general link that you could?
Yes, I will share the journal link right now in a second.
Awesome. Because I just wanted to see the RFA itself, and if you have any questions, Lawrence is here to answer, so you don't have to wait for the next things. Just get a general sense. Doesn't make sense. Is it clear for folks?
You can try that link if you open to the general.
I open it. If I open it,
awesome.
then everybody should open. So yeah, everything opens.
Okay, great.
So just make sure, I don't know, Melissa, Joy, we sent it through our listserv, right? So people are aware.
Yes.
Yes, it was sent through GovDelivery yesterday.
Yeah. Perfect. Yes, it's quite an undertaking. We're letting you know. So, and then there'll be one more job for this committee to review the applications. So it's gonna be a wonderful summer. So get some rest.
All right. With that, I think I'm going to be able to give everybody 30 minutes back, unless there is something that is just burning for you guys to talk about or to bring up. I think we can give some time back.
I do have one thing, sorry. And I'm
great,
not, this will only take a moment. So fiscal year 2024, our solicitation for that grant is coming up. So in doing so, we have to prepare a statewide racial and ethnic disparity plan. And that falls on me. I'm not asking anyone to do that. I'll handle it. But what I am asking is for your expertise. So I may reach out to a couple of you and just, what would you like to see in a racial and ethnic disparity plan for our state? Any other plans that have been submitted in the past, what would you like to see different? What can we improve on? So if I reach out to you, it's because I'm really interested in your lens and helping us formulate a plan that's representative of what we are striving to have here in Oregon. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lawrence.
That is awesome. Yeah. Anything else? Anya, for the good of the order, I think we can adjourn.
Well, thank you. Thank you all so much. And see you
Thanks, everybody.
in June.
Thanks, see you next